Canada! Hi! How's it going? Long weekend. Alex here. Welcome back. Now, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend filled with lots of food, maybe minimal arguing between family members, because now we're back to the day-to-day. We're back to work. We're back to Anchorman Canada. Now, I have a pretty special episode for you today. We're going to mix things up. We're going to do some cool stuff. Before we get to that, I'm just going to give you a highlight of what's going down. Now, we've talked about this a lot on the show, and people are talking about it nonstop to the point where it's almost getting redundant, but the legalization of marijuana is 8 days away, and I feel like there's still so much that people don't know about. You have this idea of what the world's going to be like in a week, and I don't think it's really what it's going to be like, and I have some information to back that up, to give you an idea, a picture, if you will, of the tapestry that is Canada in 1 week. As of October 17th, there's a lot that's going to be different, but there's a lot that's going to stay the same. So I'm here to mitigate some of those fears. I'm also here to let you get a little bit excited about some of the positive stuff. And this is a special episode to get you hyped up and to have a dialogue about the legalization of weed in 1 week in Canada. Now, before we get to that, I asked a question on Instagram, I asked it on Facebook, I got some answers, I'm going to get to those in a minute. But I want to know what you think, and we're going to get to that in a second. Do you think the legalization of marijuana in Canada is a good idea? Do you think that are you excited about this, or is this bad? Do you think that in 1 week, Canada is going to change for the worse? Leave your comments, and we're going to get to those comments. Can we show them what we have in store? There we go. Boom! We're stepping it up a notch. So we have comments over here that are going to pop up. They're going to populate live as you leave them. And now you get to see everything that's been going on. Here we go. Let's pull this up. So there's a lot that's going to change. Do we see? There we go. Hallelujah. Free at last. So I've seen some comments already. This is very cool. Now I'm going to give you all the heads up. I'm going to give you some context about what the deal is. But I also want to give you guys sort of a preemptive concept of what people are thinking, right? So I asked on Instagram, what do you think about the fact that you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? The first comment I got was, why is Quebec the most restrictive province? It's true. It is the most restrictive province. You have to be at least 21. There's very limited places where you can smoke it. You can't grow it. We're going to get into that, but a lot of that has to do with provincially. It might be a mentality that separates a lot of the younger and older people across Quebec. That could be one reason. Another answer I have here from Dennis is not all the way legal. That's bad. A lot of people are saying that full legalization means that people are going to be getting themselves into all kinds of trouble, all kinds of mess. So maybe having some restrictions on what you can and can't smoke, or making it a little bit more restrictive in terms of the process of attaining the ability to smoke that weed, it might help from people just going off the edge because they don't really know how their body's going to react to it. Another answer here I have is weed is a gateway drug to meth. Max says weed is a gateway drug to meth. I looked it up on the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and there is some proof that it does give you the tendencies to want to try new drugs, but there is no direct correlation between doing or smoking weed, consuming marijuana, and going off to do meth. So Max, I think you're going to be okay. Now, let's dive into it. There's a couple of things that you need to know about the legalization of marijuana in 1 week. I'm going to give you the basic points. Things that you should know just in terms of your personal body and the world that you live in. So first up, and this is the most important one, very straightforward, each province is going to regulate things their own way. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty because we've covered it before, but first thing is age, 18 to 19 across the entire country except for Quebec, 21 years old. They really want to control that down. Carrying up to 30 grams of weed on your person, that's the max. Now, that's a lot of weed. All right, and it's a fair amount because the idea here is that if you have more than 30 grams, you're probably selling it. All right, you think you're in some kind of movie, you're trying to sell it. They don't want you doing that. 30 grams is a healthy amount for anybody to have on them. Smoking on private property and private residences is going to be a thing across the entire country except for Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So they want you to smoke these like cigarettes. They're going to be regulated largely like cigarettes. But Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they have a law in place that they want public places to be available to everyone, including people that don't smoke. So if you're going to do it there, you're going to have to be a little bit more secretive, maybe find a nice cave where you can smoke your weed. And another interesting one here is growth. So you can grow up to 4 plants on average across the country, except once again, Manitoba and Quebec. So they really don't want you doing that at all. They want it to be done and regulated provincially. That's going to come back. Now, we're going to get into the interesting stuff here. One thing that you're probably not going to see a lot of is ads for weed. Now, when was the last time you saw a cigarette ad? Probably not recently. You're probably very, very old if that's the case. They don't want anyone advertising weed. So if a new strain comes out that you're really excited about, you're probably not going to see something pop up for that. Are we scooching this over a little bit?
Yeah.
Nice and tight. Pull up the O. Henry ad. Pull up the O. Henry ad here.
Oh, really? O. Henry?
Okay, so you might have seen this, and I saw this a couple months back. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. So if you're not familiar with 420, it's a meme that's existed since the 70s in California, since weed has been around for a very, very long time. The idea here is that you smoke on 420, whether it's 4 p.m. and 20 minutes past 4, or it's April 20th. It's a meme to smoke on 420. And what did O. Henry do? Very smart, very clever. Their whole branding is green. O. Henry 425. This is the treat, the dessert they want you to have after 4:25 minutes afterwards, once the hunger kicks in. Now, it's not super on the nose for people that don't understand weed culture. They were asked about this. The comment they gave was, "Hey, we're not trying to piggyback on the whole weed culture. We're just tuning into what people are talking about and what's trending right now." And they found a very clever way to basically sell you a product to eat after you smoke weed. Now, what's interesting about this is, as I said, you're not going to see an ad or a poster on a bus or the metro for weed specifically, but you're probably going to start seeing ads like this for products that are trying to coerce you to associate them with weed in a very, very subtle way. So that was kind of funny. Now, what's interesting about the fact that they're not going to be advertising weed is that a survey was done, and 60% of Canadians admitted they have no idea where to buy weed. Now, I'm more surprised about 40%. How do you guys know where to buy weed? But 60% admitted they have no idea where to buy weed. So how the correlation is going to happen, how people are going to translate from not buying weed to buying weed. You might see ads for the shops that are selling the paraphernalia and the weed itself, but you're not going to see an ad for a specific strain. If Snoop Dogg puts out an ad, that's not going to pop up. The way you're going to buy it, again, I'm going to super briefly jump over it. So Ontario, Quebec, and most of Atlantic Canada is going to be provincially regulated. The rest of the country, you're going to see some private shops open up, but again, they have to go through a process that the province gives their okay. Federally, provincially, it has to get the thumbs up, right? But they do it for you. They're doing it for Canadians. Now, again, the way it's going to work is you're going to have a place like Shoppers Drug Mart where you're going to pop in. There, it's going to be more of a prescription-based process where you're going to tell the pharmacist what you want, and they're going to say, yeah, that's you're going to get high with Marty this weekend? Here, have 7 grams. But then the LCBO and the Shoppers Drug Mart, LCBO, and then in Quebec, you have the SAQ, where you can buy alcohol as well as now in the future marijuana. It's going to be more of a anonymous situation where you walk in, you buy your weed, no one bothers you, can even do it online, you get out, right? Some people are saying, hey, it should be more regulated. You should have somebody tell you specifically what you're going to smoke, especially when people haven't done it before. Other people are saying, I want my autonomy. The two schools of thought there. I want to know what you think. And we're going to get to the comments. Ooh, you guys are leaving comments. I love it. I want to know what you think. Do you think that it should be more tightly regulated even though it is legalized, or should people be able to do whatever they want? You don't have to go to talk to a doctor or a pharmacist every time you want to buy a bottle of wine, so why should you have to do it for weed? Let me know if you think that's a fair comparison in the comments. And another thing is what's not going to be for sale in these shops. So right off the bat, edibles. Weed being worked into brownies and cookies and chocolates, not going to happen.
Really?
100 milligram gummies can mess you up hard. And they don't want people tripping. I wouldn't know. I'm speaking, this is what I've heard. 100 milligram gummies of weed gummies can mess you up hard. And they don't want people tripping out. They want to be able to control it and make the transition into legalization, I guess, a little bit more easy. Right? They don't want people bad tripping. So that's one thing. Vape juices is another thing. The government just doesn't have enough data on the science behind it, if it's good or bad, so that's a no-go. Another thing, what was that?
I was like, edibles.
Edibles. I know, that's half of it, right? That's half the fun. Another thing is you can't sell to friends. So if you live hypothetically in a province that where you can grow your own weed, so not Manitoba, not Quebec, you are not allowed to sell it to a friend. Whether or not they are paying you directly for it is a different story. So I'm not trying to tell you how to do something illegal here. But, you know, if you start a business where you offer to draw your friends, even if it's terrible, a little portrait, if you will, for you know, $60, and you happen to slide in a 7 gram, well, you know, that's up to you. But the gram has to be for free. That's neither here nor there. I'm just laying out the information. Now, what will be for sale is going to be the plant themselves, so dried up, as well as oils. That's also going to be fully regulated provincially. And if you break the law, because even though there's all these things that are going to be open and you can smoke and you can buy it, if you break any of the laws, like growing in a province where you shouldn't be, or selling it to minors, or what have you, it can be thousands to tens of thousands. Ooh, I just kicked the camera. Thousands to tens of thousands of dollars in fines or jail time. So don't do it. It's not worth it. Let's see if we can get some of the answers here. Woo! You're going to watch my channel. I love it. Yeah. We might even do some smoking on air. You know, once it's legalized, why not? Maybe some oils. Try some stuff. I like thought about this, but you should have had long-time cannabis use there to help. I don't know if that means that we should be smoking all the time to make things better, but yeah. Can you scroll through that, or is that it is what it is?
Let me see.
Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm also going to pull up Facebook at the same time. And you guys can't see it, but it's warming up here. It's warming up here. That's what happens when you talk about a big subject like weed. All right. Here, let's go to the Facebook page. And I'll reiterate the first question I asked you. What do you think? Do you think weed should be legalized? I mean, it's happening now. People can't really fight it any more than it already is. But I guess you could protest it in the streets, and maybe you could talk to your elected officials. But it's happening in Canada in 8 days. So do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Here, let's pull up the episode. Let's get to some comments. Let's make sure this is muted. Okay.
Yeah, don't want to.
We'll get to the comments in a second. Another thing that's very interesting. Now, this is about the whole industry in Canada. I feel like people talk about legalization of weed, and they picture just, you know, a couple of guys going to a shop, buying some weed, and that's the end of that. Statistics Canada put out a study that last year announced that in 2017, the entire weed industry in Canada alone was worth $5.6 billion. So there's a lot of money to be made in there, basically overnight. Now, one thing that a lot of industry specialists are saying, though, is that even though weed is going to be legalized in 1 week, it's going to be very difficult to get your hands on some. The reason for that is the supply that's going to be existing on that day and shortly thereafter is not going to equate the demand. So picture when the new Nintendo Wii came out, all right, like a decade ago. They made a very limited amount of it, and then parents were trying to find one for their kids. It was impossible. Oh, you're pulling up by province here. Yeah, no, pull that up. Pull that up. That was good.
I thought it was time.
So what you see here, this is the average weed consumption by month in grams by province. So Nova Scotia, congrats. You guys are getting a high. Almost 30 grams over there. Nunavut, maybe step it up a little bit, you know? And what's interesting, actually, is that Northwest Territories and Nunavut are also going to be, and Yukon as well, I believe, are going to be the slowest into translating over into post-legalized Canada in terms of weed. So that's very interesting. But a lot of people are smoking weed. Now, there's going to be about 200 stores so far, as we're discussing this right now, that have either applied for their license or are in the process of applying, or they already have their license. The issue is, though, is that by October 17th, there's not going to be 200 stores open. There's going to be very, very few. The biggest shockers is that in BC, which is one of the biggest weed markets in Canada, there's going to be 1 store ready on October 17th. In Ontario, which is projected to be 40% of the entire weed industry in Canada in terms of people buying weed, there's going to be none. So again, I think a lot of people are thinking they're going to wake up on October 17th, they're going to wear all green, and they're going to walk out and find 100 stores that are just going to pop out of nowhere. It's not the case. So whether you're worried about that being a thing or you were excited about it, I'm sorry to disappoint you or, you know, help you out with your fears. And just to tell you how few people are actually ready for this, one of the biggest distributors in Canada, Aurora Cannabis Inc., they're not even going to be in full production until 2019. So there is definitely going to be a delay. I mean, obviously when you're when you're making something like marijuana legal, I think a lot of people are waiting to see what's going to happen before they pounce on that. Yes, a lot of money has been stored and has been held onto before people start investing, but people aren't just going to jump on this. They want to see what the environment's going to be like. How are people going to react to it? That's one. So delays in production, delays in distribution, people not having the proper channels set up. That's going to cause a ton of bottlenecks. So, if you're excited about, October 17th, manage those expectations. A good example of that as well is that in Colorado, when it was legalized, there was not enough weed to go around. There were lines around the corner, and it actually made the price of the weed in Colorado skyrocket to the point where people were just turning to their dealers, and they were just doing what they were doing all this time up until the legalization, and that might actually affect the industry as well, the legal industry. If that initial transition is too jarring for a lot of people that already buy their weed illegally, well, they're just going to turn back to the person that's always been there for them, which actually sounds kind of beautiful. And so just to give you an idea, 30 to 60%, that's how much they're projecting is the amount of weed that they have for people. They don't have 100%, they have about 30 to 60%. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be disappointed on October 17th. But, if you have your weed procured in different ways, you can celebrate as well in your own way. So can we let's pull up some of these comments. Thoughts of it only being sold online at first. That's interesting too. Well, I think that's already been something that's done, right? It's already been legalized. I know of people that that buy it online, and so far the system seems to be super legit. It's doing really well, and they get their package and everything seems okay. Big money, huge money. Again, Colorado, using it as an example. If I'm not mistaken, it was something like crime dropped. The money that they were making from selling weed in Colorado actually went towards the education system, and it made their programs better. There's nothing, I think, there's definitely going to be some downfalls, and I think there's going to definitely be people getting to accidents, not to the point where it's going to ruin Canadian roads. There's definitely going to be some people that are not going to know their limits, but I think overall, I think it's going to be a benefit to Canada. What else we got here? Dispensaries online over 19. Yeah. See, that's the interesting thing about online ordering, right? If you go to a website and it asks you for your age and you're 17 and you say, hey, I'm old enough, what's stopping you from just, lying to it or stealing your parents' credit card? So that's actually really interesting. I feel like I've never even thought of that. I've never heard that argument come up. Online dealing is gonna be a serious thing for sure. Can we scroll down a little bit?
No, we can't.
No, we can't. All right. So keep your comments coming. Oof. Keep your comments coming. Here, let's see if I can scroll up here. That one store in BC is gonna get rich quick. Yeah, they're gonna get rich quick, and they're gonna have to shut their doors for a bit until they get more weed. Thank you for that one. What else we got here? I think we got a lot. Yeah, no, it's a long time coming for sure, Belinda. This is something that we've been dealing with for a while, and it's interesting too to see what people's perception and reaction to Justin Trudeau is going to be like in the near future. So let's get back to the show here. Let's talk about traveling with weed, and this is again not to use the word fear mongering, but I feel like there's a lot of information that's been thrown around, and some of it sounds ominous and a little intense and a little intimidating. But the truth of the matter is that this is real. I think we're at a point now where it feels kind of crazy, and you're going to be telling your kids about the fact that weed was illegal for so long, and they're going to be like, what? But I could just go to a vending machine. I mean, your kids in this scenario are, 21 years old. But you get my point. We're in a weird time. And so U.S. immigration lawyers have been saying for a while now that if you go to the border and you admit that you smoked weed or you've smoked weed or anything of the like, they're gonna ban you from the border. They have the ability, the option. I gotta stop kicking that camera.
Yeah, you do.
I have big feet, if you can't guess. But yeah, no, they have the option to ban you, and they're essentially saying it as a threat. Another interesting little tidbit about the border here is that the U.S. Attorney General said the same thing about the fact that if you admit it, it can be used against you, but also that as soon as Canada legalizes weed, expect border delays. Border delays is their little jab at, hey, you know what you're doing, and that's fine, but we're gonna make your life a bit of a living hell, which is kind of not cool. And I understand where they're coming from, because the U.S. has a toxic relationship with marijuana. Let's put it that way. But to essentially say that it's gonna cut off tourism for sure. I mean, already a lot of people are skipping out on going to the U.S. for a multitude of reasons, but now the fact that that's going to be a thing, it's just going to make lives for so many people such a living hell. Now, the good news about that is that it's going to be legal to carry up to 30 grams of weed on you in a domestic flight. So that potentially could boost tourism in Canada tremendously. You can visit all the provinces with your weed and buy weed there, and you won't have a shortage of weed if that's your thing. If not, check out Canada anyways, because it's a beautiful, beautiful country. Now, going back to the border real quick, sorry, just one thing to keep in mind. There's no questions that are going to be changed so far. So as it stands, when you go to the border as of October 17th, there are no new questions they're going to ask you. But if they think you're suspicious in any way, if you look like a man or a woman or what have you, that you smoke weed and it's impairing your life in some way, it's endangering the people around you, they can ask you the questions. They can't, however, administer a drug test. They can't give you a lie detector exam. What they can do, though, is go through your phone. So, recommending you wipe your phone if you've had mysterious or any kind of message that could be interpreted as something illegal. Because you don't want to get banned, you don't want to get turned away from the border. It'd just be a huge pain in the ass. And don't lie, because if you do, that can also result in you getting banned. And if they pull up your phone, they find your history, talking to your dealer, maybe call it dog food, maybe call it candy, and they'll just assume you really enjoy treats, or you have a dog. It's a couple ways to work around it. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to give you practical ways to work around the constrictions that the U.S. is trying to apply, because as Canada works its way into this new chapter or new era, really, in our country's history, the U.S. is sort of going to be there as a bit of a roadblock, literally at the border, watching us. So keep that in mind when you do anything. What else you got here? Let's pull up some comments again. I'm a big fan of the comments. Woo! Hallelujah, free at last. I feel you, Belinda. We have been here longer than you think. Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, no one's denying the fact that weed has been around in Canada. I think we're also way more... understanding isn't the right word. I just feel like it's less of a thing here in Canada. It's obviously still illegal until October 17th, but there's less fear. And actually talking about fear, talking about just past history. So one thing that's super interesting is that Justin Trudeau, the current prime minister, has admitted to having smoked weed. And one thing that's not really been talked about too much is whether or not the people that have been arrested or have a record for having sold weed or having smoked weed and getting caught or whatever, are they going to be pardoned? Hasn't really been explored too much. I think they've said that anyone that's been selling massive amounts of weed or trafficking weed, essentially, that's not on the table. But look, if Justin Trudeau can do it and still go across the border, maybe we should work something out here, because it's not fair to everybody else. Di says, yes, but I'm afraid if I smoke weed or invest in the industry, I can be bad for life. That's what I'm saying. Like, it just feels silly almost, 30 grams allowed to be taken on flights within Canada. Within woo-hoo! Canada. Woohoo! And it's a big woohoo. It's a big woohoo because I think what it does is, yes, there's going to be lots of restrictions in different provinces. Like I said, Quebec, the most regulated. Is this going to be a way to maybe bridge some of that and slowly tear down some of the barriers that are blocking people from one to the other? Oof. I hope so. All right, let's get on to the next one here. This is an interesting one too, because this is also super divisive. Lots of information with this one. What are Canadians' doctors saying about marijuana and health? How is this affecting? Because one thing that a lot of people, and this is maybe the biggest issue for most people, isn't so much other people smoking weed and getting high in their own private areas. It's how it's affecting either those people's lives or the people around them or just society in general, right? So Canadian doctors are saying that mental illness is something that is largely affected by marijuana in positive ways and negative ways. So in positive ways, they're saying that it can treat things like anxiety, it can treat tons of mental disorders, it can treat chronic pain, epileptic seizures. So there's a lot of benefits to this. But they're also saying that there isn't enough conclusive data to say that it's 100% definitively good for you. They're also saying, this is an interesting concept that I didn't think about. So the government of Canada has a site, and they essentially stated that depression and anxiety disorders could potentially be linked to weed, linked to marijuana. So here's the quote, I'm just going to read it because it's so good word for word. Are depressed people smoking weed, or is weed making people depressed? And I think it's sort of a passive-aggressive statement to put out there, but I think it's interesting because I think what it highlights essentially is that there's not enough information to make a blanket statement like, hey, weed is great for you, or hey, weed is really bad for you, and it's probably going to ruin your life. And as I said to Max earlier, is it a gateway drug? Is it going to make you, is it going to take you down a path where you're going to start getting addicted to meth? Not necessarily, but once again, because there's so little data, it's hard to make a conclusive statement on something like that. Another one that's super interesting is that smoking before the age of 25 can actually have a negative impact on your brain. And there are people smoking weed in Canada, and I'm sure around the world, at very young ages, as young as 12 and 13. And that can sound messed up to a lot of people, and honestly, I think it is. Is 25 too late? Look, you can go to war and drink at younger than that. I think you should be allowed to have the option yourself to be able to decide whether you're going to do that or not. The science for now says 25 degrees can stunt growth. It can, depending on obviously how much you're smoking, but it's something to take into account. And I think that this should be taught in schools. I think that for all the education you have in schools about all the drugs you shouldn't do, where's the education for, hey, if you do this, this is how you should do it. Or here are places that you can go to do it safe. Or here is the right way to do something and the bad way to do something. Because look, if we're honest with ourselves, people are going to find a way to do something that they probably shouldn't. And then once it's legalized, if no one's telling you about how to do something properly, well, guess what? You might do something wrong. So maybe the education system should take a look at that as well. And one more about the, this was, I can't remember, the National Institute of Drug Abuse. They talked about THC levels in weed and how it affects you and does it lead to drug addiction. And so there's the popular saying that, weed doesn't, you can't get addicted to weed. That's not a thing. It turns out that the THC in weed actually causes dopamine levels in your brain to explode. Not to crazy lengths, but enough that if you smoke enough weed, you might get addicted to it. And it could be more of a habit. It could just be, at the end of the day, you need that to calm down. Some people need it to go to sleep. Some people like to start their day with it. That habit eventually can become a bit of an addiction. And that's pretty much what they're stressing. But again, going back to the whole health thing with doctors, not enough information. Hopefully, though, there's going to be enough data coming in with lots of people smoking weed across Canada, and there will be an explosion of information that we can use. Let's get to the comments one last time before we end the show, because this is just a fun one today. You guys are into it. Different strains affect people differently. That is so true, T. You have sativa, you have indica, you have weed that will put you out and knock you out and have you go to sleep. You have weed that will liven you up, and you can have different people affected very differently by it. You can bad trip on a hit, or you could smoke 2 joints and be in a good place. And that's another thing that's very interesting about the way that they're going about legalizing it. Because, as I said, there is Shoppers Drug Mart, where you'll walk in and you'll talk to a pharmacist and they'll recommend something to you. And then there's at the LCBO and in Quebec at the SAQ, where you'll essentially be on your own. And unless you're willing to do some homework and do some research, how do you know what you're getting? How do you know how strong it's going to hit you? Yes, it's still illegal to smoke in a car, whether you're a passenger or a driver, but it's a learning experience for a lot of people that have never done it before. So that's a very interesting thought. Belinda says she's been a cannabis user for 20 years. You must have been waiting for October 17th for a very long time. Amen. All right, I think we got through all the comments here. Let's see if we have any on Instagram. One last time. Oh, here we go. Liz says it's bad. Everyone's going to turn into drug addicts. She's so scared. Yeah, no, that's totally possible. Again, you don't know how people are going to react to things. Some people are going to go too far with it. And I mean, just imagine, for example, if alcohol was legalized today, just out of nowhere. Just we were in prohibition, people still got their alcohol somewhere else, and we just legalized alcohol. Let's say there was people that grew up without alcohol. Let's say there's people that had never tried it before. What would the world look like after something like that? And again, I'm optimistic about this. I think that a lot of people can find the good in it. There are a lot of benefits, but I think that the benefits and the negative aspects of it are also going to be largely based on the people that are consuming this drug. So that's our show for today. Super interesting topic. We're 8 days away from legalization. Leave some more comments. I'll get to them. We're going to have a Weed Watch segment tomorrow, and maybe I'll go over some of the comments because they're just so damn good. Tomorrow night, another episode of Anchorman Canada. If you haven't seen the show before, we do it every weekday, Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, share it with someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years, because everyone deserves to know a little bit more about the world they live in and Canada as a whole.
Wait up. Before you head
What are we doing?
There's one more comment.
Ooh, let's read the comment. Where is it?
Before kids used to steal smokes from their parents' packs, now they'll be stealing joints.
They'll be stealing joy. It's true. Oh my God, can you imagine? Or your kids asking you about, hey Dad, what's your favorite strain? Or getting weed from your kids for Father's Day. I just feel like that it's gonna be an interesting world. It's gonna be an interesting world. Canada, have a lovely night. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.